How many of us have any relation to or any interest in college sports? How many of us are glued to the television when the big game is on, or even just there watching because everyone else is? Without even raising your hands, I knew that it was going to be the majority of the class. This is simply because college sports and the media coverage of college sports are a huge part of our culture today. These college athletes put their bodies out on the line day in and day out, not only for themselves but for their teammates, simply so that we can be entertained. College sports are a billion-dollar industry that generates revenue that ultimately gets funneled back into the university. Just think about $1 billion. What do these athletes get in return? The answer is little to nothing. They are used as advertising by their university and are simply used for the stream of revenue that they create. Although this topic is quite controversial, it is my strongest opinion that college student athletes should get paid. Everyone in this situation is gaining off the back of the athletes. What do the athletes get? These athletes risk it all out of love for the game, for their teammates, and for their school. They also forego much of their free time and barely have enough time to manage a full-time bachelor's degree course load. So therefore, working and earning wages is out of the question. The fact of this matter is that everyone else seems to be getting more than their fair share, other than the athletes. The fans are getting what they want, the universities are getting what they want and need, and even the so-called non-profit known as the NCAA seems to be making out just fine. Everyone but the athletes is getting their fair share. I stress that again. For example, my beloved Clemson Tigers football team alone have a gross revenue stream of roughly $46 million a year. $46 million. And a net profit stream of roughly $11.3 million. Their athletic department as a whole saw a total operating revenue system of $679.6 million. The amount of money that universities make off the backs of their athletes is eye-opening. This money gets funneled back to the university and pays for things like professor and administrative contracts, facility renovations, degree programs, and ultimately academic and athletic scholarship funds. I know what some of you are thinking. Well, what about all the gear and special treatments that the athletes get? So yes, these athletes may get some perks. However, they essentially pay that all back two, maybe even threefold through the revenue their sport brings in. As these numbers show, yes, the athletes may get to sit at the table, but they seem to be getting crumbs instead of their fair share of the pie. Playing a college sport along with your academics is your job. There's no time for any kind of employment. How are these students expected to take care of themselves? They're not able to pursue any internships or try to save for the future. Then what happens when they get hurt? These athletes risk their health not only for themselves, but for us. When I say us, I'm referring to the universities, the student body, and the fans. Once again, what happens when they get hurt? They can potentially lose their scholarship, and they're left with nothing. No money for them saved in the bank to fall back on when necessary. And then these injuries they sustain can affect them financially and their well-being for the rest of their lives. And that just does not seem fair. I'm a strong advocate for college students getting paid. I feel as if there should be some form of salary that goes into a type of saving bond that cannot be touched until they either graduate, choose to forego the remaining years of eligibility, or because of extenuating circumstances, like in the case of a career-ending injury. I do not agree that they should be making salaries similar to the professionals in their sport, or their coaches or administrators. Just enough to have them land back on their feet after their playing days are over. A fair compensation in the grand scheme of things for what they bring to a university. It also makes sense to me that if an athlete is successful and at a level of play where they attract endorsement deals, then they should be able to make those contracts. But the money also be in the form of bonds or simply money that they cannot access while they are still playing. I also believe that these student athletes should receive a small bi-weekly stipend, comparable to what a student who seeks out a part-time employment or internships because for a college athlete, their sport and their academics are their job. I can relate to this on a smaller scale. I played high school sports for 4 years, so I'm able to relate to the demanding time schedule. I played multiple sports all 4 years, so I was constantly training or in season. That combined with my academics meant there was no time for work. Being a college athlete is exponentially more demanding. There's a lot more at stake for athletes because it is an even more crucial chapter in our lives as we transition into the real world. Paying college athletes would overall benefit the athlete and essentially not hurt anyone else in the process. Ultimately, the student athlete will know that they have something they can fall back on in the case that their career falls apart. They will have some sort of financial security when and if the time comes to make a life for themselves. These players are people too, with families they need to provide for, and without this, they would have nothing. We don't hear the failure stories of athletes that never made it to the next level to make the big money, or the stories where athletes get hurt and their career is over and then they can no longer pursue an education because their scholarship goes to a healthy player that can ultimately bring revenue to the industry and their university. I understand that in the real world, such as life, plans fail and unfortunate events occur. People's career plans fail and they are left to start over on their own. However, when individuals are laid off, they receive pensions and other forms of compensation. Individuals in the workplace get rewarded with bonuses even when they excel in their field. I feel as endorsements should be looked at in the same light. However, the fundamental difference with college athletes is that they are put in a position where others get rich off their successes while they're left with essentially nothing. I would not feel this way if everyone else involved was not getting over and above their fair share. In the end, instituting a regulated payment system for collegiate student athletes just evens out the scales.